Hello, everyone. Welcome to our little gathering today. We're so excited to have you join us as we chat about all things culinary. We've got some great stories and tips to share, so let's dive right in. So, the other day, I was preparing this tangy coleslaw for a family barbecue. One of those dishes that really brings out the fresh flavors of the vegetables. The key ingredient, white vinegar. It's what gives the coleslaw that crisp, sharp bite that balances out the sweetness of the carrots and the earthiness of the cabbage. But as luck would have it, I realized halfway through that I was completely out of white vinegar. It was for our annual summer gathering, where everyone expects my coleslaw to be the star-side dish. White vinegar is such a staple in my kitchen, not just for coleslaw, but for pickling, making salad dressings, and even in some of my marinades. It's a versatile ingredient that's really popular here in California, especially for bright, fresh dishes that are perfect for our sunny climate. Faced with the shortage, I had to think on my feet. Rather than substituting with another vinegar, I decided to create the quick infusion using apple cider vinegar, which I had on hand, and some ingredients from my garden. I'd added some fresh lemon juice, a bit of sugar, and a few herbs like dill and thyme to balance out the flavor. I let it steep for a few minutes, and the result was surprisingly close to the sharpness and clarity of white vinegar, but with a bit more depth and a hint of herbal freshness. The infusion worked wonders in the coleslaw, adding a unique twist that everyone loved. It was a reminder that sometimes a little creativity can turn a potential disaster into something special.
Oh, Sarah, that's so clever. I love how you didn't just reach for a simple substitute, but actually created something new. I've always been curious about how you managed these little kitchen hiccups. I wonder, did the infusion change the overall taste of the coleslaw much, or did it still have that classic tang?
Thanks, Jennifer. The flavor did change slightly. It had a bit more complexity because of the herbs and the apple cider vinegar's natural sweetness, but it still had that essential tangy bite, which kept it true to the original recipe. The family noticed the difference, but they actually enjoyed the twist, so it turned out to be a win.
That sounds incredible, Sarah. I'm always a fan of those little touches that make a dish stand out. Did you notice any difference in the texture of the coleslaw with the infused vinegar compared to using straight white vinegar?
Great question, Emily. The texture remained pretty much the same, which was a relief. The acidity of the infusion was just right to soften the cabbage and carrots without making them mushy. It was still crunchy and fresh, just how we like it.
Well, Sarah, you really turned that situation around. I'm curious, though, how did you decide on the specific herbs and ingredients for the infusion? Was it just what you had on hand, or did you have a flavor profile in mind?
A little bit of both, Maya. I chose dill and thyme because they're pretty neutral herbs that wouldn't overpower the dish but would complement the flavors of the coleslaw. The lemon juice was to boost the acidity, since apple cider vinegar is a bit less sharp than white vinegar. It was all about balancing the flavors to keep that classic coleslaw taste.
I'm so impressed, Sarah. It's such a great example of thinking outside the box. I'd had moments like that too, where I've had to improvise on the spot. Did you feel like this experience might inspire you to experiment more with vinegar infusions in other dishes?
Absolutely, Chloe. It opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me. I'm already thinking about different combinations for salad dressings and marinades. It's exciting to think about how a small change like this can create new flavor profiles in familiar dishes.
I agree, Sarah. And speaking of white vinegar, I think one of the critical criteria when purchasing it is the acidity level. For me, especially in New York, where I often use it for pickling, the acidity needs to be just right. Around 5% is ideal. Too low, and it doesn't preserve well. Too high, and it can overpower the dish. I've learned to always check the label carefully to ensure I'm getting the right balance.
That's such a good point, Chloe. In Washington, where I often use white vinegar for baking and preserving, I always look at the source. I prefer vinegar that's made from organic, non-GMO ingredients. It's not just about taste, but also about supporting sustainable practices. I find that the quality really comes through in the final product, especially in something like a sourdough starter or homemade jams.
I completely agree with both of you. In Florida, freshness is key for me. Because I'm using it in so many vibrant, fresh dishes, I make sure to buy vinegar that hasn't been sitting on the shelf for too long. I like to buy from local producers when I can, where I know the turnaround is quick. The fresher the vinegar, the brighter and cleaner the flavor, especially in dishes where it's the star ingredient.
That's such an interesting perspective, Maya. For me, living in Texas, I'm really particular about the flavor. White vinegar can sometimes taste harsh, so I look for brands that have a smooth, clean taste. This is especially important when I use it in my pickled vegetables, which we eat regularly. I also avoid any vinegar with added preservatives or artificial flavors which can affect the taste and health benefits.
Those are all fantastic points. Another thing I consider here in California is the versatility of the vinegar. I look for one that can be used across the variety of dishes, from dressings to cleaning produce. A good all-purpose white vinegar is a must in my pantry, and it should be something that blends well with different cuisines without dominating the dish.
For an alternative to white vinegar here in Washington, I often use apple cider vinegar. It's got a milder acidity and a fruity undertone that works beautifully in both savory and sweet dishes. I've used it in everything from marinades to even a few baking recipes where that slight apple flavor adds a nice depth. It's not as sharp as white vinegar, but it brings a unique character to the dish.
That's a great choice, Emily. In Florida, I sometimes use lime juice as an alternative, especially in salads or seafood dishes. It gives a zesty, fresh flavor that's perfect for our tropical climate. Lime juice isn't as strong as white vinegar, so I usually add a bit more to get the right level of acidity, but the bright citrus flavor is totally worth it.
I love that idea, Maya. Here in Texas, I often turn to rice vinegar when I need a substitute. It's milder and slightly sweet, which works well in pickling or in dishes where I want the vinegar to be present, but not overpowering. Rice vinegar is less acidic, so it's great when I'm cooking for people who prefer a less tangy flavor.
Those are all wonderful alternatives. In New York, I've found that balsamic vinegar can be a good substitute, especially in dressings or marinades. It's richer and sweeter than white vinegar, so it's definitely not a direct substitute, but it adds a complexity to dishes that's really lovely. I often reduce it to concentrate the flavors, making it a great drizzle over salads or roasted vegetables.
I'm loving all these ideas. Here in California, I sometimes use white wine vinegar as an alternative. It's got a delicate flavor that's a bit more refined than white vinegar, making it perfect for lighter dishes like vinaigrettes or even some desserts. It doesn't have the same sharpness, but it adds a subtle depth that's really enjoyable. Wow, what a great discussion we've had today. We talked about the importance of acidity in white vinegar. Emily emphasized the value of sourcing and sustainability. Maya highlighted the freshness factor. Jennifer focused on flavor. And I discussed versatility. Each of these points is so important when choosing the right vinegar for our dishes. I'm really grateful for all the insights you've shared, and I'm sure our viewers will find them just as helpful as I have. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this chat as much as we did. Don't forget to experiment with your cooking, and maybe even try out some of the vinegar tips we shared today. Until next time, happy cooking!